true to the fam. In the booth, you can't do what I can. Yeah, I live in the studio, man. In the summer or the winter, got the studio time. OMG, stay true to the fam. In the booth, you can't do what I can. Yeah, I live in the studio, man. In the summer or the winter, got the studio time. I've got the studio time. I've got the studio time. I've got the studio time. In the summer or the winter, got the studio time. I've got the studio time.
Good afternoon, welcome to That's Your Opinion, Not Mine. My name is Chris. Tez is floating about over there, and we've got the legend that is Bill. We've got a great interview today, Bill. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
It's been great. I've been really looking forward to this interview, Bill, and this experience. It's not just an interview, Bill. We've got absolute gifts. You're going to do a couple of numbers for us.
I am, yep.
We're going to start off with a song.
That'd be great.
One of your own.
Yeah,
What is it called?
This song's called In Our Dreams. In Our Dreams, and we can talk about it before or after. It's entirely up to you.
Let's get the song on.
Okay.
And then we can discuss it after. So let's get that set up.
Okay.
And then let's listen to this.
Stuff.
Calling out, it's a feeling I get and then reaching out to the thieves and the beggars and friends. We are young, but our youth has been washed with the tide, ebbing and flowing with some kind of hope. It's taking our minds for a ride, and all of these things come to pass in our dreams. Here I am, surrounded by all I hold dear. I can't make out the week or the month or the year. The story goes, the beginning is just like the end. Turn all the pages and what do you see? Something on which you depend. And all of these things come to pass in our dreams. And all of these things come to pass. And all of these things come to pass in our dreams. Our dreams.
Go on, Bill. What a cracker.
Thank you.
Whoa, big.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to come back. We're going to have a chat about that song
Thank you.
just in a moment.
We interrupt this program to bring you.
We are going to interview the first ever person to try the hot sauce. He tried the hot sauce roughly around 3 or 4 hours ago, and we're going to interview him now because he's only just been able to communicate with us. So we're going to our friend Harvey, and he just tried the hot sauce. Over to Harvey. Harvey, did you like the sauce, mate? Did you taste the pineapple? We're going to have to call an ambulance or some sort of physician, some sort of medical person. Okay, we got problems. We're gonna have to cut now. Like I say, fire in the tooth hot sauce. Don't buy this. Just don't buy it. It's not safe. Okay.
That was absolutely excellent. That was fantastic acoustic there, and really appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Oh, it's the song's a few years old now. It's probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years old now, but it was written at a time when I was sort of trying to make the transition from pretending or thinking that I was still going to be a rock star and just reflecting on life and everything. And the Thieves and the Beggars and Friends mentioned in it is basically kind of everyone you've come across in your life, and yeah, and it just all kind of melds or molds into your dreams, yeah, there's a bit of a Spanish influence in there as well. I've got a bit of Spanish ancestry somewhere way up the line. So yeah, again, you know, kind of like a reflective song, and the line, "The youth has been washed with the tide." You know, we're still kind of hanging on in there. Yeah, I can still do this, let's do this, but your youth's kind of ebbing away, and you do eventually come to a realization at a certain age where actually, you know, I'm not going to be a rock star, and I need to start enjoying music, and you know, not focusing on all that. It's yeah, strange period, but you kind of get there in the end. So
it's like an old boxer, you know, just one more fight, you know.
Yeah,
I can do it. I can still do it. I just want.
I mean that ended up on an album that I kind of self-released, and it was one of those things where I did it, and it was kind of like it was like the boxer's last fight. That's a really good analogy, because you know, I did it and I thought, right, okay, and you know, I had a couple of well-known people who played things on it, and I thought, wow, this is really going to do something, and it fell flat on its face, and it sort of, I'm not going to say destroyed's probably a dramatic word, but it kind of finished me off for a little while. I didn't write songs for a couple of years, but it's still out there and it's still online, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm sure we can put some links in somewhere in the
all the links
or something. So
all the links will be with all your music.
Yeah, so it's still out there, and I'm very proud of it. That's the first track on the self-released album, and now I look at everything that I do musically and enjoy it with no agenda about trying to get everything else out of it. And it's a lot more healthier than basically going from being a kid who wants to be a rock star to being a middle-aged man who kind of appreciates what he does.
We're going to move on to the music in a bit,
yeah.
But I would like to start with, we go all the way back to the childhood.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, how it all started? And
well, yeah, I mean, basically, I ended up in care. I mean, you know, obviously we met through, you know, men's mental health and stuff like that. So that is very relevant to it. So yeah, I lost my mum when I was barely 6. You know, went into hospital for a routine operation and never came back. And then you know, various things happened over the next sort of 4 years. You know, one of my older sisters cared for us, and then our dad took a decision to put 4 of us in care, me and my 3 siblings in care, and that was from the age of sort of 9-ish until I was 17, and basically left care. So I ended up in residential care and foster care from sort of, you know, the age of 9.
How was the care system back then? You know, I know it's a bit...
It's an interesting one because, I mean, obviously, again, something we can probably get to in a bit. I work within fostering panels now, and it's something that I always sort of relate, you know, when I get asked or you know, told is that it was very different there. I kind of introduce myself and say, you know, I was in care in the Jurassic Age or the dark, what I call the dark days of the 1970s and 80s, and yeah, you know, it was, you know, I won't pull any punches. It was abusive. There were kind people there, but not all of them. And generally, the kind people, the younger, kinder people, didn't tend to kind of hang around very long. So it was pretty brutal sometimes. I mean, you know, it's been a bit of a sob story for most of my life, whereas now I'm much more comfortable talking about it. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. It doesn't upset me. I have times when I reflect. Times
When you
when I
say,
can reflect.
sorry, Bill, when you say sob story, what do you mean?
Okay, yeah, let me explain that. Yeah, basically, going through your life and various mental problems that you end up with through your life, you just go, oh yeah, it's because I had a crap childhood. I had a crap childhood. That's why I behave the way I am. And not necessarily try and do anything about it. And it does become kind of your life sob story. Whereas now, people say to me, oh, that's awful, and it's lovely when people say that, but actually, it is, and people are generally empathetic and caring, but it's down to the individual to deal with it as well. So yeah, it was a bit of a tale of woe, to be honest. But there are, there's always people who've had worse than you. But yeah, it wasn't great. Kind of long-winded answer to a short question. It was not a great time to be in care.
Yeah. Any reforms to the care system you would like to see as a result of your time in care? Have you seen any reforms?
Yeah. I mean, again, through my work, they're social workers and anybody involved in the TAC, team around care for the young people. They're much more on the ball with it now. I mean, sadly, things do slip, and obviously we've seen some horrendous cases in recent times of little toddlers being, had unspeakable things done to them. But I'd like to think that generally, certainly within the care system, it's improved. I mean, kids in residential places are kind of bit tougher now because they're the one that generally tend to be the ones that are sort of not unfosterable, but they're in residential because they kind of struggle being in a family environment, I guess, and maybe they need that kind of institutionalized thing to sort of sort them out before they maybe go into foster care. It's difficult, I mean, everybody's experiences are different, and every young person's got a different story and different experience and different background.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I want to speak about the fostering panel, moving on to that, because it's great stuff what you do there. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I got involved with that nearly 20 years ago now. A friend of mine was a social worker, and that's, again, just digressing slightly, that's something that hasn't changed much, is that young people's attitudes to social workers, teenagers especially, you do get a lot of them who just like, social workers are, and I was a little bit like that. And this is relevant because I was in a band with a chap, and he was a social worker, and he rang me up one day and he said, Bill, look, I sit on these fostering panels. And I said, right, what's that all about? And he said, well, you know what I do, don't you? I went, yeah, you're a social worker, Still got that teenage attitude to social work. So this is 20 years ago now, nearly 20 years. And I said, yeah, I said, you're some sort of social worker. And he said, yeah. And he said, look, I sit on these fostering panels. So basically what it is you have panels like you have an adoption panel. The carers, to be approved as foster carers, they go through a process, quite a rigorous process, to be approved, and then eventually they come in front of the panel, which is myself and various other professionals with various other varying degrees of excellent background and experience, and they get, I was going to use the word grilled, but no, not grilled, but we read very in-depth reports about their background as well, and we look at stuff and analyse stuff that may be relevant to how they're going to care for a potential foster child. And then we make a decision based on that. So we're kind of like, it's not rubber stamped by any means, but we're kind of like the last line of defence. And you've got teachers, you've got social workers, and myself, who's what they class as a care leaver. That's or ex-service user, which I hate, but that's kind of like my official title. And then it goes to a kind of we recommend, and then it goes to a final decision, and off they go to be foster carers. We also review carers who've already been carers for a year, a couple of years or whatever. That's actually a nice rewarding part of it sometimes, because you see carers that you've maybe sat on their initial panels. I mean, I've been doing it so long that I see carers who've been there sort of 7, 8, 10 years and come back and see the amazing work they've been doing. So that's it. Yeah, that's what we do, kind of in a nutshell.
Have you ever considered fostering yourself?
That's the $1 million question. I was talking about that the other day.
Knew that also. I bet you knew that was coming, that question.
Yeah, it is the $1 million question. Straight answer is no. And I think really the reasons for that are, I've got grown up kids. My kids are great. They're not without various issues like any adult kids or whatever, especially if you've had a parent who's in care. And I do myself down a little, and I get told off for this, saying, I was a bit of a rubbish parent because I'd never had the nurturing or the parenting myself, which I get told off for because my kids have kind of turned out all right. So I must have done something right. But I never felt comfortable as a parent. I guess because I never felt like a grown up. Because I was never allowed to grow up. So it's all relevant. All these little things kind of trickle through. And I don't think I could put that into foster care. I'd love to be able to give young people that opportunity that either I didn't have. I raised my kids and it's not something I could do. And to be honest, I couldn't go through that process that we have to read and then sit in front of the panel. It would be probably too rigorous for me. So the simple answer to that is no.
Okay, fair enough. I had to ask, but yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, but moving into the music. How has this evolved into you? When did you first realise you was interested in music? You wanted to be a rock star and you wanted to be in a band?
One of my earliest memories, we had a piano in the house, and I remember sitting at that piano and literally just playing notes and Frère Jacques or whatever it is you sit and play when you're a kid. And literally, I would sit at the piano and think there was just something magical about the noise that came out of that piano. I found out years later that I've got a lot of musical heritage, which I didn't know at the time, which I'll maybe get to in a minute. But so my earliest memories, and there was always music in the house. I had 4 older sisters, and there was various bits of music that used to get played. I remember things from the 60s, Simon and Garfunkel and Andy Williams and stuff like that. And my dad used to sit, so he was quite strict, our dad, and we used to sit down on a Sunday lunchtime and we weren't allowed to talk, but we had music on, and it was always generally always classical music. So before I was even maybe 4 or 5, I'd listen to Strauss, Andy Williams, Simon and Garfunkel. And then I think the light bulb moment for me was we were around some family friends' house. They had a record player, and I put on Paperback Writer by the Beatles, and it came on, and it was Paperback Writer, and then George Harrison, and I just listened to that guitar, and it was like, I don't care what that is or how you make that noise. I want to make it one day. I want to make that noise one day. I've still not been quite close to it. But so then I discovered the Beatles, and I wasn't quite old enough to appreciate them at that time till later. So basically that kind of went on. So it just became a little bit ingrained. And then one of my earliest memories also was I made a cardboard guitar, and I had some wool. And I got some glue or sellotape or whatever it was, and made strings and cut this guitar out. And I remember, I don't know what I was doing, whether I was jumping up and down to some music or listen, or just but I remember getting told off, and I'm sure I probably got beaten or something for jumping up and down in the night with this cardboard guitar, pretending to be whatever I was pretending to be. So that's another early. So something had gone in there, and so moving later on. So that kind of sat there, and I've just always been into music. I love music. I've got a really eclectic taste in music, even now. And so that kind of went on, and then into my teenage years, I was doing a little disco with a friend of mine, Martin Bass. I give him a mention if he ends up watching this. And I loved all the 70s disco. Before that, my brother had been bringing home Slade records and T-Rex records and stuff like that in the 70s. So music just became a massive thing, and I did the little disco with my friend Martin, and then I just decided I wanted to play the guitar. So by this time I'm 14, 15, and life's tough. I've been in care for a little while, and it was a release, so I learned a few chords, and then I'd go out with this awful punk band, but I'd just lose myself in it. So basically it became an escape. And it's kind of been like that ever since, really. Up to this very day, sitting there playing that tune, I still lose myself in it. Yeah,
that's fantastic, Bill. So, it's a good experience. Growing up through the care system, and like your escapism
through music. It really was. The music sort of became the escape.
So, what are you currently doing regarding music in the band? Because I know obviously COVID hit and it messed everything up for a lot of people. So what are you doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll sort of jump back a little while to bring you forward again. Because it ties in with what I was saying earlier about doing the album and everything. After that, I stopped writing and everything. And after a couple of years, I thought I need to do something I'm just going to enjoy. Just do music for the sheer joy of playing the guitar or performing or whatever. And I joined an 80s band, an 80s cover band with some friends of mine. And I wasn't the lead singer. I'd always been the lead singer in all my bands and everything. I wasn't the lead singer. I kind of stood at the side, played the guitar. And it was great. And it kind of got me back into enjoying the music again. That went on for probably up until about 2011. I'm going to burp, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, that went up until about 2011, and then I got into another 80s band with some friends of mine in 2014 called Hyperactive, and that we worked really hard, and that's been ongoing for we would have been in our 7th year now, I think. Obviously, COVID struck that dead like it did for everybody, and in that changing, things happen with the band in during the lockdown and everything. We've sort of come back, and all the bands are coming back now, and it's things have changed for us, so we can't do it in the way we used to. And to be fair, nor would I want to. I've been playing. I mean, I did end up as a professional musician for 25 years as well. I earned a living from it. I travelled the world doing it. I neglected to mention that bit. So despite wanting to be a rock star, I ended up actually earning a good living from it for about 25 years. I worked that was brilliant, actually. But it was a necessity because it was all I knew. I started playing professionally in 1986 in duos, in a duo, and then got in various bands, then ended up going away on cruises, and then ended up, working on boats. And this was all playing. I ended up in the Middle East on and off for a year, playing over there in a duo. And but it was to feed my family because it's all I did. I didn't do anything else until probably sort of the late 90s when I sort of got some other skills. I started doing graphic design and stuff like that. But so I earned a good living from it. But now I don't need to do it for the money, which is great. And so to bring it bang up to date now, I'm literally just write stuff for pleasure of it. I've got my albums that sit there out there on the internet. I've probably got another album's worth of stuff sitting there kind of ready to go that I need to kind of finish, that I've collaborated on a producer friend of mine with. So I've got lots going on, but it literally is now for the joy of doing it and for the joy of eventually, putting something out there and somebody saying, I don't need my ego. I used to need my ego massaging, which I think it was Bono that said, if we didn't have an ego, we wouldn't do this. And I know Bono's a bit Marmite with people, but it's a very good point. And, even with the 80s band, I like to put on a show, and people seem to respond to it, but I don't need to do it. I don't need to have the ego massaged anymore. It's nice when people appreciate what you're doing, and it gives me pleasure to see people getting pleasure from what I do and being able to use my talents to do that. So I feel very blessed to be able to do that, and I never appreciated it. There are great advantages to getting older and still being an entertaining musician, because you can appreciate what you do better and appreciate how other people appreciate it rather than what you're trying to get out of it all the time.
Yeah, that's a great look on it, a great spin, great outlook. Got a couple of random questions for you, Bill, because we like to throw some random questions in.
Okay.
What's one of the dumbest things you've ever done?
Wow, that's one of the dumbest things.
We always do get this reaction.
Yeah. One of the dumbest things I've ever. Do you know what? Actually, the weirdest thing actually was yesterday. Was going out walking in that awful weather we had. That was pretty dumb. But there was no buses running, and I wanted to go for a walk. That was pretty dumb. I don't know. I've probably done lots of dumb things, but the one that jumps into my head instantly was shoplifting when I was in care. It wasn't particularly bad, and I got, it was back in the days when if you took something silly and little from a shop, you would get taken to the police station, and nowadays, you'll get a tap on the wrist from the store detective, your parents will come and get you, and off you go. I had, and again, this is very relevant to the care system and how things were at the time. Me and my mates used to record records. We used to record the vinyl records onto cassette. Then we would go into Boots and nick the covers. We'd pinch the covers and put them in the cassette boxes. That was it. I had an afternoon in a cell for that, and then I got hauled up in front of one of the commissioners and got an absolute roasting for stealing. And wow, if you're ever going to learn a lesson as a kid, I don't know how old I was, 14, 15 maybe. That was pretty dumb. I've jumped off a few things and drinking and driving. That's a really dumb thing. Properly drinking and driving. That's pretty dumb. Yeah. I'm sure there's loads more, but I can't think. You really put me on the spot there, and I can't.
Yeah, well, there's more questions coming now. Just bear with me. A good old 5-finger discount.
Love it.
Okay, so if you could be a 1950s gangster, what kind of gangster and who would it be? A 1950s gangster, Bill. What one would you be?
Wow, I'd be 1950s. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they had gangsters in the 1950s.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say Al Capone. I'd probably be a nice gangster. I'd be too nice, I'd like having the gun and all that sort of stuff.
No bullets? No bullets.
I have bullets in it, but I don't think I could ever shoot. I don't think I could ever shoot anybody. I'm too scared and too nice. I think I'd just be a kind of nice gangster. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd probably be just a kind of nice gangster who tried not to get into too much trouble, but pretended he was a bit of a big boy.
I know a few people like that today.
Talk the talk, but not be able to walk the walk.
Okay, basically. Fair enough. So, who was your influences, musical influences, or other influences growing up?
I think without a doubt the Beatles have to come into it, although like I said, I didn't really kind of hear that so much. So my brother was coming, I had an older brother who's 2 years older than me, and he would be coming home with Wizard records and all the stuff that was out in the 70s. But when I started getting influenced actually as a player, my big influences straight away were the Stranglers. I was into punk. I loved the Sex Pistols. Again, that was a bit of a light bulb moment when I first heard, the guitars on the Sex Pistols. It's just like, wow, that's an amazing guitar set. And I think when you're also an angry young man as well, they hit the right spot at the right time with so many kids with that band. The Stranglers, they were the first band I ever went to see. And they were a little bit more refined, and Hugh Cornwall, the singer and the guitarist, he was a big influence, and I loved his guitar as well. And then you kind of go forward, and you've got then I started listening to, got introduced to, I had lots of school friends who had big brothers, and then we'd get all the rock stuff, Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that, and I listened to all of it. So by the time we got to the early 80s, I'd been listening to all the rock stuff from the 70s, all the glam rock stuff, and then the 80s stuff come along. I became a massive Gary Newman fan.
I'm glad you said Gary Newman.
Who I'm going to see again this year, 41 years after I first saw him, still going with the same schoolmates as well, strangely enough. So all that came along as well. So I was listening to Newman, Pink Floyd, and then some as the 80s went on, maybe some of the later 80s rock bands. The 90s wasn't great for me. It didn't jump out at me the way that the sort of late 70s and early 80s did. But I think influences wise, I'd have to cite the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Tears for Fears, and the Stranglers. They're probably the biggest ones. I've probably forgotten one, but and I've got some kind of modern ones as well.
I was going to ask you, what do you think about the modern day?
Well, I don't listen to the radio because I just don't. I don't. It's the same stuff. I don't really like DJs, and I'm not a fan of DJs. And what I've found now is that. And it's sad, really, because a lot of really good stuff doesn't get onto the radios. But with the advent of the internet and the way it is now, there's so many good bands out there, and you kind of have to just go and look for it and discover it. you know, I was saying about eclectic taste. I mean, I also love, you know, kind of like Ibiza, kind of chilled house and stuff like that. And there's a couple of internet stations that I listen to, and I'll sit there and just have it on, and then all of a sudden something will pop up and I'll go, wow, and I'll quickly get out, write it down, then go and find out who it is. And I've discovered 2 or 3 different bands from all over the world that I listen to regularly that people wouldn't even have heard of. I think the most kind of popular, I'm not even going to say mainstream, that I'm into at the moment is a guy called Stephen Wilson, who's been around for a long while now, but he was he's mainly known for being in a kind of prog rock band called Porcupine Tree, and I discovered him very late in the day, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, it found out he had a massive back catalogue, so I'm still kind of working my way through that. So he's kind of a big influence on, you know, what I do and what I listen to. But yeah, and Tears for Fears have got some new stuff coming out as well. So some of these old guys, you know, still making original music, not necessarily going out on the kind of retro tours, which is something I'm just not into, you know. You know, Tears for Fears have just brought an absolutely belting new single out, which is as good as anything they did in the 80s. But it will get marketed and presented in a different way. It's very different. So I'm not a fan of a lot of the modern music and just this constant battering of auto-tune on everything now. You know, I think every kind of music's got its merit. I try not to slag anything off. If I hear something and don't like it, I won't go, oh, that's fucking awful. I just won't listen to it. Let somebody else who likes it listen to it, you know. Become much more objective and less critical now, I think.
If you could collab with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Wow, it's really interesting actually, because I've been very lucky to have been able to do that. Now, one of the people I didn't mention is a guy who was around in the early 80s called Thomas Dolby. And he had a couple of big hits in the 80s, and he's now he then got into tech in the 80s and 90s, and I've been lucky enough to meet him, and I went for a phase of doing what I call guerrilla mixes. So I would take someone's track and I would just kind of do my own mix of it and stuff. And I did a mix of one of Thomas Dolby's tracks. Now he'd been a hero of mine for years, musical hero of mine for years. And I did a guerrilla mix of one of his tracks, and instead of kind of, you know, finding him through the usual channels, I sort of knew roughly where he lived in Suffolk, and I knew that he'd made an album on a lifeboat that he put in his garden. So I did this track and I put it in an SD card, shoved it in a card of, I think it was Ramsgate or something, wrote him a handwritten note saying, you know, hope you like this, you know, it's a present, no agenda, no nothing, just remixed a track by one of my heroes. And I put it, you know, to the name of his lifeboat in the village that he lived in, stuck it in the post and forgot about it. 6 months later, I got an email from him. Hi, Bill, I've just got round to listening to your mix of my track and it's epic. And my life was complete. Massive hero of mine. So then I ended up in a situation where there was the chap who played the piano on it, a guy called Doug Hammer, who lives in America as well. So it was a kind of 3-way collab with this Doug Hammer, who's an amazing piano player who played on the Sea Fever track that I did before Christmas. And Thomas Dolby. So it was a bit of a collab there. So I was really lucky with that one. Somebody who I'd love to, I think it would have to be either of the guys from Tears for Fears or both of them. That's a simple one.
Fair enough. That's interesting. What's your music guilty pleasure, Bill? Everyone's got one. What's your?
My guilty pleasure is bossa nova. Okay. I absolutely love bossa nova. Carlos Jobim and stuff like that, you know, Girl from Ipanema, that's probably one of the most famous bossa nova tunes. I love it. I would love to be able to salsa and have never been brave enough to do it.
Never too late, Bill.
I know. I don't know. I've got rhythm. I'm a musician. I've been playing for years. I know I've got rhythm, but I seem to have 2 left feet.
You dance like a constipated boxer.
I'm not a great. Yeah. I'm not. I don't think I'm a great dancer. I know I've got rhythm, but I'm certainly not a great dancer. Yeah, guilty pleasure, bossa nova or swing. I love swing. Any of the Rat Pack stuff, Frank Sinatra and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I very occasionally when I do karaoke, I will sing, people say, oh, do you do an 80s tune? I was like, no. My guilty pleasure karaoke song is Copacabana by Barry Manilow.
Wow.
I did say, I've used the word eclectic a couple of times now, so there
Why are you
go.
laughing, Ted?
There
She's
you
cracking
go.
up over there. Barry Manilow. That's
Her
quality.
name was Lola. Yep. Yeah.
Quality, lovely, fantastic. We're bringing it to the end of the interview near enough, Bill. So where can we find your music? And we will put the links in the description below.
Yeah, so I've got the album that I was referring to earlier. I did it under an alias of Jimmy Bone. It's Jimmy with an IE, not a Y. Jimmy Bone, who was... he was a character in a mythical character in books that I grew up with when I was younger, where I used to live, and I took his name as a band alias.
Why did you do that, Bill? Can I ask?
Because I was never confident enough to go out under my own name, which is what I do now. And I know you touched on this earlier. I do go out as Bill Lowdell, making music now. Again, it's just hiding behind, not being brave enough to use my own name. Again, maybe a lack of confidence thing, which goes back years from being, the insecure kid, all that sort of stuff. So it became, Jimmy Bone was a band, even though it wasn't a person. But then it got a bit silly, and people even my brother started calling me Jimmy for a little while. It got a bit weird. So that's available on that's still on iTunes as far as Apple Music or whatever it is now. It's on Amazon, Spotify, all the various places. And I do have I put a 3-track single on out a couple of years. I think it was 2020, probably just before lockdown or around lockdown, under my own name, and that's called Fly, which is the song I'm going to play shortly, and that's on you can find that on Amazon. And again, all the outlets. In fact, I was really pleased the other day to find that it's actually on TikTok as well. So I did a TikTok the other day, and
wow.
my first TikTok, totally unrelated to music, actually. Lighthouses. Maybe that's something we could talk about another day. My obsession with lighthouses.
Go on, let's talk about it now.
Well, okay. I'm obsessed with lighthouses. I love lighthouses. Again, it's a childhood thing. When I was a kid, I could just about see. I lived down on the south coast, and there was a lighthouse that I could see from my bedroom window. There's something. It's sad now because they don't go round anymore. They just flash. They've all got LEDs now, and they're all centrally controlled by Trinity House on computer. But in the old days, they would go round, and there was something really haunting about a lighthouse beam going round, but also something. They're beacons of hope. They're beacons. They're beacons of light, beacons of hope, and it's become a real kind of metaphor for me now for my life and just trying to be hopeful. And I basically just started going around visiting them now. So and I've gone to quite a few now. I've been to I went all the way to Portugal a couple of years ago because I found a lighthouse in an island off Faro.
Wow.
And flew out there, found the lighthouse, found the locals' boat, went out there and found this lighthouse, and it was, it's just, some people like trains, some people like aeroplanes. I like lighthouses, but they signify hope. I think that's the positive. They signify hope and light.
Does it signify a good memory, like when you?
It does actually. It's a secure. They make me. They give me a bit of security. I feel. I get kind of warm and fuzzy when I'm with a lighthouse. And people say, do you go up them all the time? And well, no, because a lot of them you can't go in now anyway. But they make me feel. They do something to my heart. They make me feel okay. Make me everything's all right with the world. That's been standing for hundreds of years, or some of them are couple of hundred years old. That's been standing there, giving out that light for all that time, for all those people. And it's. I think it's quite significant. So there's a deep, rather than just being obsessed and looking at them going, oh, that's a lovely lighthouse. There's a deeper significance to it. I'm turning into an old hippie as well, as I think, as I get older.
That's fascinating. That's really interesting, Bill, to be fair. So I'm glad we actually spoke about that, to be fair. That's really,
I've forgotten about that, actually.
That's interesting. I do tend to draw things out of people for some strange reason, but that's really good and positive.
Yeah.
What's next for Bill? What's next for you?
Oh, what's next for Bill? Well, I've become, lockdown has kind of done me a favour in a way, because all the fostering panel meetings went online, as so many things did, onto Teams or Zoom or whatever. And it became, first of all, it was, we're missing the face-to-face, we're missing the interaction with the carers and sitting with a group. And when it sort of became the norm, the company that I do most of my work for decided to keep it online. So they've got lots of regions around the UK. So I took myself to some of the other regions and offered my services, and it's pretty much become my job now. And because I've sort of grown into it as well, and I feel more confident as a kind of ex-kid in care. I love that work. It's brilliant. It's really rewarding. So basically more of that, lots of that, and basically as much music and kind of video, putting together videos to go with that music as I can, really. More importantly than anything, I've got kids, grandkids, and spending time with the family. I've got the best friends a man could ever wish for, and spending time with them, and just keep self-analysing and keep reflecting and dealing with the stuff that I've had in my past and not being defined by it, and ultimately being happy. It's taken most of my life to do, but I'm getting there. So life's shaping up all right at the moment.
It's fantastic. Well, you're going to play us out in a moment. I'm just going to do the outro, and then we're going to what we playing out with, Bill.
This is a song called Fly. Again, most of my songwriting is both sort of metaphorical and semi-autobiographical. God, blimey, that's
impressive.
Yeah. And this is it's kind of simple, really, but there is a deeper meaning. And also, I think people read into songs. I hear people a lot say, what's this song about? And they say, well, actually, different songs mean different things to different people. They can read what they want into it, but the basic crux of it is when you get on that aeroplane, and I love flying, I love traveling to places, and you get on that aeroplane and you're in the rain's coming down, and you take off, and then you've got that bit where you're in the clouds, and then all of a sudden you're above the clouds, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're above the weather, the sun starts shining, all your troubles are down below. And you think, no one can touch me up here. And just for a moment, just for a little while, all is kind of good with the world. If you've got problems, your problems get left behind. And then you come back down. Sometimes you come back down with a bang. Sometimes you come back down with a soft landing. So again, that's a metaphor for, what's going on in your life. And quite simply, spread your wings. Don't try not to live a life that you're not happy with people that you don't want to be with, whether they're friends, partners, whatever. Spread out your wings and fly.
Wonderful, Bill. Thanks for coming down today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you, Tez.
Thanks, Tez. Yes, she's there. We did the outro. So yeah, you've been watching. Great interview with Bill. He's going to play us out with Fly. You've been watching That's Your Opinion, Not Mine, with Chris and Tez and Bill today. We're going to be back next week at some point with something probably completely random. Who knows what we're going to do from one week to the next? Who knows? So until then, it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you. Goodbye from me.
And we're going to play out with Bill with this wonderful song, Fly. So Bill, take it away.
Okay. Once in a while, I see people rushing by. Sometimes they smile, and sometimes they make me cry. All of those places from far away, places can lie. With all my resolve, I resist the temptation to fly. Away from the ground, with your troubles far below. Up over the clouds, as the sun begins to glow. And out come the stars you can reach out and touch if you try. Surrounded by and sublime, like it never was before. Lovers they kiss, but their hearts know it's really goodbye. Hurting and broken, the wings pick them up and they fly. With all my resolve I resist the temptation to fly. Surrounded by beauty, you spread out your wings and you fly. And you fly. And you fly.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
OMG, stay true to the fam. In the booth, you can't do what I can. Yeah, I live in the studio, man. In the summer or the winter, got the studio time. OMG, stay true to the fam. In the booth, you can't do what I can. Yeah, I live in the studio, man. In the summer or the winter, got the studio time. I got the studio time. I got the studio